Happy Monday, everyone. Hope that you're doing okay and have had a wonderful start to the week. I'm sat next to the guinea pigs today, so I might get distracted as I look over, but I needed a change of scenery, and this is a lovely view of our bookcase. So I'm here today to talk about yoga as activism rather than yoga. I think before I started my teacher training, and why I went into my teacher training was because I felt like as activists, we were not looking after ourselves in terms of our health, physical health, mental health, all the things. And I think it stems from a personal experience, but from many people in the community as well. So I was like, okay, I'll go on this yoga teacher training, learn the embodiment practices we need to keep ourselves resourced to do the activism. So we come and practice yoga together so that when we need to go on the streets or when we do our activism, which isn't like a yogic practice, we have the resource to do so. That's what I went into, and I guess I kind of thought this was the case for a long time. And now, after, documenting my becoming on yoga philosophy and all the things, I'm now like in a place where yoga is activism. It is the activism. And that's because it's an eightfold path. It's an 8-limbed path, 8 limbs of yoga that take us to something called samadhi, which is liberation. And basically, I've now conceptualized, integrated, understand, obviously there's so much more to learn, don't get me wrong, how that relates to collective liberation in the sense of an activism, social justice place. And I'm going to talk about it today. We'll see how we get on. So I made this little handout for people in my in-person classes. I'll see if I can link it on Substack, but you can find this stuff online. Basically, it's the 8 limbs of yoga, and it ends with samadhi, which is liberation. So I'm going to go through each one, talk about it, and then I'll make the connections between the two. So we start with the yamas, which is ethical restraints, the things that we shouldn't do. And this will, in turn, move us towards liberation, which is non-violence, non-lying. Non-violence, ahimsa. Satya, truth, non-lying. Asteya, non-stealing, being like okay with everything that we have. And like celebrating everything that we do have. Brahmacharya is conserving vital energy. Now, some people say this is celibacy. I am not 100% sold on that at all. So I think for me, Brahmacharya is about that conserving your energy through boundaries, through other means, basically, through like, for me, maybe even, through boundaries, basically. And then aparigraha is non-greed, non-possessiveness. So they're the things that we restrain from, we don't do. And they're kind of related to the external world. And internal though, because non-violence towards the self too. And then we move to niyamas, which are inner observances. So that was step 1, path number 1. Limb number 1. Limb number 2 is niyamas, inner observances. So they are saucha, which is cleanliness and purity, and it's not in the sense of purity as in virginity, all that sort of like narrative, and maybe some yogis say it is not in my practice at all. Cleanliness and purity in this instance is about a clear and clean mind, space to like meditate, like that we're clear as much as we can. It also means like your space around you. If your space isn't clear, clean, what does that do to your mental well-being? For me, it's like very evident when things are difficult, things aren't like as tidy and clean as they can be. My partner is great at helping me out with all that, bless Jay. Anyway, so saucha, then you have santosha, which is contentment. So that's having a deep contentment for life, for where you're at now. And I think for me, this is the thing that's changed the most since practicing yoga, is that like I have a deep contentment for like where I am in life. I've become much less ambitious, like in the capitalist sense. I'm like really content with what I have. And also maybe that's like a privilege thing as well. Like, we'll see. But I feel like there's an inner contentment in my body that I'm okay with being who I am on this planet, on this universe. There's some deep contentment that has been cultivated through the practice of yoga. For me personally, I haven't got the words to articulate it properly yet. And then the next one we have is tapas, so that's self-discipline. And in my yoga teacher training booklet, it also says underneath practice causing change. So I've changed that to practice shaping change, which is of course an ode to Octavia Butler's spirituality Earthseed, which centers God as change, that we can all shape change through kind of being prepared for things, or finding our agency in each and every moment, finding where we have choice and where we can shape in every moment, even when we have hardly any options, hardly any choice. How can we still shape change from this position? So that's tapas. And there's a discipline to that, actually. There's a discipline to believe that you do have the agency to shape change. And then we move to swadhyaya, which is self-study. So self-study, studying the self, means that you're studying everything because we are one of the same. And then we have Ishvara Pranidhara, which is surrendering to a higher power or devotion. So this to me is where, like, I've made the choice. I've chosen to believe that yoga is what is going to get us free. This framework is what is going to get us free. And by making that choice to devote myself to this practice, to this journey, to this becoming, I think when I'm more open to this, I think I receive more in terms of like things that I didn't know before, like being okay with uncertainty, like all these things come from kind of surrendering to this path as being something I have faith in is going to get us free. Something quite interesting about that. And then, so we've got the 2 ethical codes, path number 1, path number 2. And then we have, this is where yoga is different, is that it brings the body into the conversation. We have asana, which is movement. So in the classical yoga sutras that Patanjali wrote, he doesn't say anything about all the different shapes, all the different poses that we have in yoga. All he says is that we need to be able to lengthen our spine to be able to sit in meditation. That's it. That's all he says about asana. All the other stuff has been built from that, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that it's important to come back to the root, which is all about meditation and all about becoming ultra aware of the physical body. That is the key with asana. Become ultra aware of the physical body. Be aware of sensations, of channels of energy, different changes when you have emotions, like where does it appear in the body? All of this is asana, every part of it. And then we move to pranayama, so we're on number 4. Pranayama is the study of prana. So a lot of people associate pranayama with the breath, with breath work. It is partly that, but it's also about controlling prana in its entirety. So prana is the life force energy that caused like the first 2 atoms to collide to everything else. It is everything. It is the force behind everything. And one way that we can study prana, so pranayama is the study of prana, life force energy. The one way we can study that is through the breath. If we can learn to control the breath, harness the breath, that is prana. That is a way that we can learn how to control prana. And in Raja Yoga, they say that if you learn to control prana in the internal body, you can control it. You control all of prana, everything. So you can move everything or control prana. I don't know if moving is the right word, but controlling and manipulating prana is possible through beginning with the breath and beginning with yourself. And then we move to pratyahara, which is one I don't know as much about. I'm on a journey with pratyahara, and pratyahara is about not being affected by the external world. The example people give is you have an itch, but you don't have to act upon it. It's just something that happens. And the way that we can practice this is things like closing the eyes, that's reducing the sensory input. Anything that is a withdrawal of the senses can help us practice pratyahara. And I think I've noticed pratyahara has come to the forefront of my mind recently because I've been going to like yoga spaces, and there's like yoga spaces that have really bright lights, really strong smell of incense, really loud music. All these things, my senses are like overstimulated, and you know, we're in an overstimulated world. I'm neurodivergent, also that impacts it as well, like the overstimulation of all the senses, right? And I guess I would like it if we could just turn off the lights, turn down the music, you know, all these sorts of things. And I guess the practice of pratyahara is that we're not affected by these things. And I know that this is a practice and something I may not achieve in this lifetime, but that is what pratyahara is about, I believe. That would be amazing, that I could enter these spaces that are overly stimulating. I mean, the whole world, the capitalist world is so overstimulating. And then I can move through that without it affecting my nervous system and actually helping me in my spiritual journey. And then we move to dharana. So we're on number 5. Practice one pointed focus. So that is, for example, gazing up mandala, gazing at trataka, so candle gazing, chanting a mantra, just like nothing else. You're completely unaware of everything else other than the one thing that you're focusing on. That is dharana. And then we get to dhyana, which is meditation. So this is an uninterrupted bliss state. So we feel like we are, I get it sometimes when I get glimpses of this sometimes when I'm in shavasana after a quite active asana practice. And if I meditate for a long time, I sometimes get to that state, but it's glimpses. And in this uninterrupted bliss state, I feel like I have a deep contentment. So there's something about santosha that comes up for me during this bliss state where I just feel so grateful to be alive and just really connecting with everything that is, the life force particularly. And then we get to samadhi, which is where the kind of help with the comparison between like collective liberation, we talk about in activism, and liberation in yoga. Is samadhi is liberation, and it means to merge. So what happens is with samadhi is that we detach from the external world and attach to collective consciousness. Detach from the external world and we attach to collective consciousness. It is believed that when we reach samadhi, when we connect with collective consciousness, we have complete union with collective consciousness. Once we get here, we become all-knowing, all-feeling. You know those words, omnipresent, something, I don't remember. We become all of these things. Omnipresent, omnipresent, I can't remember them now. Something like that anyway. We basically become all-knowing. We know everything. We find out everything. Everything comes to our being. We just understand it all. And it is at this point that I'm pretty sure it's yoga, the Patanjali, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali. He says, I just find this all so cool. He basically says that once you merge with collective consciousness, you detach, merge with collective consciousness, you become all-knowing, you know everything, you're everywhere, everything, all that sort of thing. And what happens is then you get the choice. You either join the gods and become a god, or you go back to being a yogi, and you bring all this wisdom with you to the reality that we're in now. And I think that is where I think this practice of getting to samadhi will give us the answers for collective liberation. Because I think about, I think people say to me, okay, so what does a liberated world look like to you? And I have my thoughts about what that looks like. But when I think about someone like Donald Trump and other people like this, how on earth are we going to create harmony, balance, love, compassion, care when we have people like this on our planet? How do we do that? And I wonder, I do believe artists are are a kind of group of individuals who will support us with this. Don't get me wrong, I really do. I also believe that once somebody reaches samadhi and they become all-knowing, all-everything, if they choose then not to become a god, but to come back and continue the life as a yogi, I think that knowledge, that wisdom, will give us more of the clues that we need, more of the becoming, documenting the becoming that we need to get towards liberation. And that in and of itself is the activism, is spending our life's work finding ways to access that all-knowing, all-pervading knowledge. Now, that is a risk because, you know, I have to have faith in this process. I have faith that if I dedicate my entire life to trying to get that, is it worth it? I think at the moment, I think it is. And I don't think in my lifetime I'll be in that position. However, I believe that, you know, the more lifetimes, I believe in kind of multiple lifetimes, maybe in a future lifetime, someone will reach that and pick up where I left off. I don't know if that's how it works, but, you know, there's just something about it that actually, because liberation is so hard to define, like how do we create liberation, harmony, balance with people like Donald Trump, etc., etc.? How do we do that? How do we include everyone in our liberation? I think because the answer to me feels like it's going to be something really out there, something that we can't even imagine, or maybe we can imagine, but we need to give ourselves the time and space to do so. I believe merging with collective consciousness, we will get the answer. I'm pretty convinced that that is probably what will happen. And I think that is what this is all designed for. Because since time, people have been trying to find liberation, trying to uncover freedom, trying to find freedom. And this is a path that has been, you know, it's lived for a long time. It's a lot of people have practiced it. And I'm really beginning to see the kind of signs that this is a way that we can get free. And collectively, like everybody can get free. But, you know, we'll see. I just find it all very exciting. And I just would like to now announce that I have moved from a place of yoga is something that we need to do in order to continue our activism. It's a both and though, isn't it? It's that and the other one. But let's just say for now, I'm moving from this on the spectrum towards the side of yoga in and of itself is the activism, because the spiritual knowledge that we get, the wisdom that we receive through this practice is the liberation, is how we get free. The out there ideas, the how we do all of this. Maybe that's what I think. We'll see. So what do you think about this? What do you think about yoga as the activism rather than the kind of respite from the activism we do? Maybe you think it's a bit of both. Maybe it's neither. Maybe you've got another idea. I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right. In solidarity with love and care.